I was there. I was one of the 200. The gymnasium smelled of sweat and floor polish and dampness that comes when 200 bodies breathe in a room built for 50. It was August 1967, Oakland, California. The afternoon light came through the high windows in thick yellow shafts, and dust moved in those shafts like golden insects. I remember the sound of bare feet on canvas. I remember Bruce's voice cutting through the humidity without raising itself, telling a student to drop his shoulder, to stop telegraphing the jab. We had been training for 3 hours. The air was heavy, not just with heat, with expectation. The tournament had ended 4 hours earlier at the Civic Center 3 blocks away. The Northern California Open, full contact, black belts only. I was just 22 and had been studying under Bruce for 8 months, which meant I knew how little I knew. But I had gone to watch. I had seen the champion. Everyone had seen him. His name was David Chung, 26 years old, built like a middleweight boxer, but with the flexibility of a gymnast. He had won every match that day by outright knockout. A spinning back kick in the finals dropped his opponent like wet sand. The crowd went silent. When you see a man hit that hard, you check if he is still breathing. Chung had bowed to the judges. He bowed to his opponent and walked out without showering, changing, or looking at anyone. Now he was walking into our gym. I saw him first. The street door opened, and the afternoon light behind him turned his body into a black silhouette. He stood there for 3 seconds, long enough for the temperature in the room to change, long enough for students near the door to stop punching and turn around. Bruce was in the corner holding pads, and he did not look up. Not immediately, but I saw his shoulders change. I saw the small adjustment that meant he knew someone had entered his space. Chung stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a sound like a book slamming shut. He was still wearing his tournament gi. White, crisp, the black belt tied with the arrogant knot of a man who had not lost in 3 years. He walked across the dirty canvas in bare feet and did not seem to care. He walked like a man walking across his own private living room. The students parted for him without being asked. Only the fans turned in the ceiling. Bruce placed the pads on the floor. He turned. He looked at Chung, and he smiled. Not the smile of a man who is happy. The smile of a man who has been expecting a visitor. "Can I help you?" Bruce asked. His voice was light and calm. It carried to every corner. Chung stopped 10 feet away. He looked at the students, at the mirrors, at the heavy bag. Then he looked at Bruce. "I heard you do not believe in tournaments," Chung said. His voice was flat, Midwestern, with something harder underneath. "I heard you think they are a game for children." Bruce wiped his hands. "I think they have rules," Bruce said. "Rules are good for sport, not always good for survival." Chung nodded. Once. "Then show me how," he said. "Show me what is good for survival." The room held its breath. 200 eyes fixed on the space between them. 10 feet, maybe 11. In a street fight, that distance closes in less than a second. Bruce looked at Chung for a long moment. Then he looked at me. I was nobody special, but in that look I understood something was about to happen that I would remember forever. "Everyone sit down," Bruce said. No one moved. "Sit down," he said again. Not louder, sharper. The sound of 200 bodies lowering themselves to the floor was like a wave breaking. We sat. We crossed our legs. We held our breath. We waited. Chung reached into his gi. His hand came out slow. Too slow for a man who had just won a tournament. The motion had a quality I did not understand then. I understand it now. He was not pulling a weapon. He was pulling a verdict. The knife was small, a tanto blade, 6 inches of steel with a handle wrapped in dark cord. It caught the light from the high windows and threw it back in a thin, vicious line across the ceiling. I heard someone behind me draw breath through their teeth. The sound a man makes when he touches something hot and his body reacts before his mind can name it. Bruce did not move. He did not step back. He did not raise his hands. He looked at the knife the way a carpenter looks at a tool he has seen 1,000 times, useful in its place, nothing more. "You think rules make you safe," Chung said. He held the knife at his side, not pointing it, not threatening with it, just holding it the way another man might hold a pen. "You think a ring and a referee make you a fighter. I have been in places where there are no rules, rooms where the only trophy is leaving with your blood still inside your body." Bruce tilted his head, barely an inch. In that inch, I saw something shift. The smile was gone. What replaced it was not fear, not anger, focus, the kind that makes the air around a man feel thinner, colder, like the moment before winter arrives without warning. "Put it down," Bruce said. Not a request, not a command. A statement of what was about to happen. Chung laughed. A short sound, dry as paper tearing. "Make me!" The words hung in the gymnasium like smoke in the silence. No one breathed. The fans turned overhead, and the dust moved in the yellow light, and 200 students sat on the dirty floor and watched a man with a knife stand 10 feet from the man they had come to learn from. I want to tell you I was brave in that moment, that I considered standing up, but I was not thinking anything. My mind had gone quiet the way a rabbit's mind goes quiet when the shadow of a hawk passes over the grass. I was only eyes, only breath held so long it hurt. Bruce took 1 step forward. Chung's wrist turned. The blade came up, not in a lunge, not in a swing, just up, a small adjustment that changed the geometry of the room. Now the sharp steel was between them. Now the air itself had an edge. 6 seconds, Bruce said. No one knew what he meant. Not then. Chung did not know. I did not know. The words seemed to come from somewhere beyond the gymnasium, beyond Oakland, beyond the afternoon heat. "You have 6 seconds to put that down and walk out," Bruce said. His voice was the same voice he used to correct a stance. "After that, I will take it from you. And you will not be the same man when you leave this room." Chung's jaw tightened. I saw the muscle move under the skin. I saw his weight shift from his back foot to his front foot, the small transfer of mass that every fighter makes before he commits. He was going to lunge. I knew it, the way you know a storm is coming when the pressure drops and the birds stop singing. "1," Bruce said. Chung did not move. The blade stayed where it was, catching the light, throwing it back. 2. Someone in the back row made a sound, a small whimper they tried to swallow. 3. Chung blinked, less than a quarter of a second. But I saw it, and I think Bruce saw it too, because in that blink, something changed. The certainty in Chung's shoulders faltered, just for a fraction, just enough. 4. The blade dipped, not much. a quarter of an inch, but it dipped. 5! Chung lunged. I have replayed this moment 10,000 times over 50 years, and I still cannot tell you exactly what happened. The human eye was not built to track violence at this speed. The brain fills in gaps, but I will give you the fragments. Chung's front foot left the floor. His shoulder dropped. The knife came up in a straight line toward Bruce's throat, angled slightly upward, the way you angle a blade when you want it to slide under a jaw. It was not a wild swing. It was surgical, practiced, the kind of thrust that comes from a man who has done this before, in rooms without witnesses, against men who did not get up afterward. Bruce did not step back. He stepped in. His left hand moved first, not to block the knife, to control the wrist. He caught Chung's knife hand at the thumb, fingers wrapping around the joint with precision that looked almost gentle. At the same moment, his right forearm drove upward into Chung's elbow, passing through the space where the elbow wanted to be, forcing the arm to straighten, to extend, to overcommit. The knife stopped 6 inches from Bruce's collarbone. Chung's eyes widened, not with fear, with surprise, the surprise of a man who has thrown a punch at water and felt the water close around his fist. Bruce pivoted. His hip turned into Chung's hip. His shoulder dropped under Chung's shoulder, and then he moved the way water moves around a stone. Chung's own momentum became the weapon. Bruce did not throw him. He guided him. A small adjustment of angle, a shift of weight, and Chung was no longer standing where he had been standing. He was in the air. The knife was no longer in his hand. I did not see the knife leave his grip. I heard it, a small, bright sound, metal on wood, as it hit the floor near the heavy bag and skidded into the shadows. Chung hit the canvas on his back. The sound was not the sound of a man falling. It was the sound of a bag of cement dropped from shoulder height. The air left his lungs in a single sharp grunt. His eyes were open. His mouth was open. He was looking at the ceiling, and the ceiling was looking back at him. Bruce stood over him. He was breathing normally. 3 seconds after the lunge, and his chest rose and fell the way it did when demonstrating a form. No faster, no harder. He looked down at Chung. Then he looked at the students. 200 faces, 200 mouths slightly open, 200 bodies sitting on the floor, still holding the breath they had drawn when the knife came out. "Get up," Bruce said. Chung did not move. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, his gi twisted around his torso, his black belt askew. He looked like a child who had been running too fast and fallen, trying to decide whether to cry or pretend it had not happened. "Get up," Bruce said again, softer this time. Chung rolled onto his side. He pushed himself up to one knee. He stayed there, breathing hard, not looking at Bruce, not looking at anyone. His hands were empty. The hands that had held a knife 6 seconds earlier now hung his sides, open, palms facing the canvas, as if he had forgotten what they were for. Bruce walked to where the knife had fallen. He bent down and picked it up. He held it by the blade, the way you hold a knife when handing it to someone across a kitchen table. He walked back to Chung and extended his hand. "Take it," Bruce said. Chung looked up. His eyes were red, not from tears, from something deeper, from the shock of having his entire understanding of himself dismantled in less time than it takes to tie a shoe. "I said take it," Bruce said. Chung reached out. His fingers closed around the handle. Bruce let go. Chung held the knife in his open palm. He looked at it the way a man looks at a photograph of someone he used to know. The blade was steady. His hand was not. Bruce stepped back. 1 step, 2 steps. He gave Chung the full 10 feet again. He gave him room to make another choice. "You came here to prove something," Bruce said. His voice had changed. It was not the voice of a fighter anymore. It was the voice of a teacher, stripped of everything gentle. "You came here to show 200 people that the tournament champion is more than a man with a trophy. You came here to show yourself." Chung's fingers tightened around the handle. The knuckles went white. He was breathing through his mouth now, short breaths that did not reach his lungs. "I do not care about your trophies, Bruce. I do not care about your knife. I care about why a man who can fight like you needs to pull a weapon in a room full of students who have never done anything to him." The gymnasium was silent. The fans turned. 200 students sat on the floor and watched a man with a knife in his hand and nothing in his eyes. Chung looked at the blade. Then he looked at Bruce. Then he looked at the floor. "I killed a man," Chung said. The words came out flat. No emotion. Just words, falling into the humid air like stones into deep water. "Vietnam," he said. 1965. A village outside Da Nang. "We were told there were Viet Cong in the tunnels. There were not. There were farmers. A man came out of a hut with a hoe. I thought it was a weapon. I did not think. I reacted. The way you train a man to react. The way you train a dog." He stopped. He was looking at the knife now, but he was not seeing it. He was seeing something that had been living behind his eyes for 2 years. "After that, I could not stop," he said. "Every fight became that fight. Every opponent became that farmer. I won tournaments because I was not fighting for points. I was fighting to survive. But the man I killed did not have a black belt. He did not have a referee. He had a hoe and a family and a hut that burned when we left." Bruce listened. He did not move. He stood 10 feet away and let the words fill the space between them. "I heard about you," Chung said. "I heard you say martial arts is not about killing. I heard you say it is about expressing yourself. I thought you were weak. I thought you had never been in a place where the only way out was through someone else's body. So I came here to show you, to show everyone, that the real world does not care about your expression. The real world cares about who is left standing." He looked up. His eyes were wet now. Not crying. Something held back for 2 years by rage and the motion of a man who cannot stop because stopping means feeling. "But you did not fight me," Chung said. "You moved around me. You used my own weight against me. I have trained since I was 12, every day, rain or sun. I have broken bones that never healed straight. I have fought men bigger, stronger, faster, and you took my knife without trying to hurt me." Bruce nodded. "Once." "Because hurting you was never the point," Bruce said. "The point was to show you that you are still carrying that farmer, that every fight since Vietnam has been a fight against a ghost, and ghosts do not fall when you hit them. They fall when you stop needing them." Chung's hand opened. The knife did not fall. It slipped. It fell from his fingers and hit the canvas with a soft, final sound, like a period at the end of a sentence. The knife lay on the canvas between them. 6 inches of steel that had seemed moments before like the axis around which the world turned. Now it was just metal. The afternoon light caught its edge and held it for a moment, then let it go. Bruce looked at the knife. Then he looked at Chung. Then he looked at the 200 students who had not moved, had not spoken, had not breathed properly in what felt like hours. "Get up," Bruce said for the third time. Chung stood. He moved like an old man, like a man who has carried something heavy for too long and has only just realized he was allowed to set it down. His GI was twisted, his belt loose, his hair matted with sweat that had nothing to do with heat. Bruce walked to the center of the gymnasium. He did not look back. He knew. "You came here to test me," Bruce said, his voice carrying to every corner. "But the person you needed to test was yourself. You needed to know if there was still a man under the fighter, if there was still something that could be reached without a blade." "There is," Bruce said. "I saw him. He was the man who bowed to his opponent after knocking him out. He was the man who walked out of the Civic Center without celebrating. He has been trying to get your attention for 2 years, and you have been too busy winning to listen." Chung's hands hung at his sides, empty. The hands that had held a knife, that had thrown knockout blows, that had pulled a trigger in a village outside Da Nang. They hung like question marks. "I cannot give you back that farmer," Bruce said, "but I can give you a different kind of fight. One where the opponent is not standing across from you. One where the opponent is the part of you that believes you are only worth what you can destroy." He took down a pair of focus mitts. He held them out. "Hit these," Bruce said. "Not to win, not to survive, just to hit them, to feel your body move without needing to hurt someone, to remember what it feels like to train without a war at the end of it." Chung did not take the mitts. He looked at them the way a drowning man looks at a rope, not sure if it is real, not sure he is allowed to grab it. "I do not deserve this," Chung said. "I came here with a knife. I came here to humiliate you. I came here to prove that everything you believe is wrong, and you are offering me mitts." "I am offering you a choice," Bruce said. "You can pick up your knife and walk out and keep being the man who wins tournaments because he is afraid to stop. Or you can put on these mitts and learn how to fight without needing an enemy." The gymnasium was so quiet that I could hear the blood in my own ears. Chung reached out. His hand was shaking. Not much, but enough. Enough that 200 people saw it and understood they were watching something private. His fingers closed around the mitt. Bruce nodded. He did not smile. He stepped into position, raised the mitts, and waited. Chung threw his first punch. It was slow. It was sloppy. It was the punch of a man who had forgotten how to hit something that was not trying to kill him. Bruce adjusted the mitt. Chung threw another, each one a little cleaner, each one a little slower. Not because he was tired, because he was finally paying attention to what his body was doing instead of what his target was about to do. After 3 minutes, Bruce lowered the mitts. "That is enough for today," he said. "Tomorrow, you come back. Same time. No knife. Just you." Chung looked at him. His eyes were clear now, not empty. Clear. Chung walked out that evening without looking back. He did not pick up his knife. He left it on the canvas, a small silver question that would stay there until Bruce placed it in a drawer no student ever opened. I watched him go. We all watched him go. The street door closed with a sound lighter than when he had entered, like a chapter ending. Bruce turned to us, 200 students still sitting on the floor, our minds trying to catch up with what our eyes had witnessed. "Training is over for today," Bruce said. His voice was normal again. "Go home, eat, sleep. Tomorrow we begin again." No one moved, not immediately. We sat there, looking at the empty space where two men had stood, where a knife had fallen, where something had happened that we did not have words for yet. Then slowly the room began to stir. Bodies unfolded. Voices returned, hushed at first, then louder. I stayed behind. Something in my chest told me to stay. I sat on the floor and watched Bruce wipe down the heavy bag. "You have a question," Bruce said. It was not a question. "Why did you count?" I asked. "Why 6 seconds?" Bruce stopped wiping the bag. He looked at me and his eyes were tired in a way I had never seen before. Not physical tired. The tired of a man carrying something other people cannot see. "Because in 6 seconds, a man with a knife can close 10 feet, Bruce said. In 6 seconds, he can decide if he is a killer or a fighter. In 6 seconds, he can choose to be something other than what the world has made him." He walked to the window and looked out at the Oakland street. "I did not count for him," Bruce said. "I counted for me. I needed those 6 seconds to decide if I was going to hurt him or heal him. Because when someone comes at you with a blade, your body wants to do terrible things. It takes 6 seconds to remind yourself that survival is not the highest goal." He turned back to face me. "David Chung is not a bad man," Bruce said. "He is a man who has been taught that bad men are the only ones who survive. He has been taught that mercy is weakness. Someone has to teach him something else. Someone has to show him that the strongest thing a man can do is not destroy another man. The strongest thing is to see another man destroying himself and choose to stop him without breaking him." I sat there on the canvas and let the words settle into me like sediment into clear water. I had come to this gym to learn how to fight. I was learning something else. "Will he come back tomorrow?" I asked. Bruce smiled, the real smile this time. "He will come back," Bruce said, "because for the first time in 2 years someone saw him. Not the champion, not the killer, just the man. And once you have been seen, you cannot go back to being invisible. It is too lonely." He walked to the light switch and turned off the fluorescents. The gymnasium fell into gray half-light. "Go home," Bruce said, "and remember what you saw today. Not the knife, not the throw. Remember the choice. Remember that in 6 seconds, everything can change." I stood up. My legs were stiff. I walked to the door and stopped. "What happened to him?" I asked. "Did he keep coming back?" Bruce was a silhouette against the window now. "He came back for 3 months," Bruce said. "Every day. No knife. Just the mitts. Then one morning, he was gone. He left a note on my desk. 2 sentences. 'I am going back to Da Nang. I have something to say to a farmer's family.'" The room was dark now. "Did he make it?" I asked. "Did he find them?" Bruce was quiet for a long moment. "He found them," Bruce said. His voice was barely above a whisper, but in that dark gymnasium it carried the weight of a sermon. "It took him 4 months. The village had been burned and rebuilt. The family had moved to a settlement outside Saigon. He found the farmer's wife. She was older. Her hair had gone gray. She was working in a rice field when he arrived." Bruce stopped. He walked to the heavy bag and placed his hand on it. "He told her who he was, Yunke," Bruce said. "He told her what he had done. He told her he had not come to ask for forgiveness. He had come to ask if she would let him kneel in the place where her husband had died." The gymnasium was dark, but I could see Bruce's profile against the window. "She did not speak for a long time," Bruce said. "She stood in the rice field, with her hands wet from the mud, and she looked at this American man who had come thousands of miles to kneel in her dirt. Then she said one sentence. 'My husband was not a soldier. He was a man who woke before dawn to feed his ducks, and she turned and walked back to her hut. I sat down again. My legs would not hold me. Chung knelt there for 3 hours, Bruce said. In the mud, in the sun. When he stood up, his knees would not straighten for 2 days. He wrote me a letter from Saigon. He said the farmer's wife had not forgiven him. She had not even acknowledged his existence after that one sentence. But he said that in those 3 hours something had broken open inside him. Not healed, broken open, like a seed that has to crack before it can grow. Bruce turned away from the window. He walked to the center of the gymnasium. He never fought again, Bruce said. Not in tournaments, not in gyms. He moved to a small town in Oregon and opened a hardware store. He married a woman who had lost her first husband in the war. They had 2 children. He died in 1994. Heart attack, 53 years old. His daughter called me that morning. She said she had found a photograph in his wallet. A man she did not recognize, standing in a rice field with a hoe over his shoulder. On the back, in her father's handwriting, were 2 words, "My teacher." The gymnasium was silent. I was not his teacher, Bruce said. I was just the first person who gave him 6 seconds to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. That is all any of us can do for each other. Give each other the space to choose, the space to be something other than what we have been told we are. He walked to the door and held it open for me. The Oakland night was warm and smelled of eucalyptus and diesel. Go home, Bruce said, and when you wake up tomorrow, remember that the man who walked in here with a knife was not a villain. He was a man in pain, and the only thing that separates a villain from a hero is not what they have done. It is what they choose to do next. I walked out into the night. I did not look back. I walked the 6 blocks to my apartment, with my hands in my pockets and my mind full of images I could not name. A knife on canvas, a man kneeling in mud, a farmer's wife with gray hair, 2 words on the back of a photograph. I did not sleep that night. I sat on the fire escape and watched the sun come up over the Oakland hills in the dark, and I understood for the first time that the martial arts I had come to learn were not about combat. They were about compassion. They were about having the strength to hold back when every instinct screamed to strike forward. I never saw David Chung again. I never saw the knife again. But I saw what Bruce did that day, and I have carried it with me for 56 years. I left Oakland in 1969. I moved to Seattle. I opened my own small school in a basement near the university. I taught hundreds of students over the decades. I taught them how to punch. I taught them how to kick. I taught them how to fall without breaking. But the lesson I taught most often, the one I repeated until my own voice grew tired of the sound of it, was the lesson I learned on a humid August afternoon when a tournament champion pulled a knife on my teacher and my teacher gave him 6 seconds to become someone else. I have been in fights since then. Not many. Enough to know that what Bruce showed us was not a technique. It was not a move. It was a way of being in the world, a way of looking at another human being and seeing not the threat, but the wound, not the weapon, but the hand that wishes it did not need to hold it. Bruce died in 1973. I was not there. I was teaching a class in Seattle when I heard. I finished the class. I walked to the locker room. I sat on a bench, and I wept. Not because the world had lost a fighter, because the world had lost a man who understood that the highest form of strength is not the ability to destroy. It is the ability to see destruction coming and choose a different path. I am 78 years old now. My hands do not close into fists the way they used to. My hips do not turn. My balance is a memory, but my eyes still work, and my memory still works. And on the days when the arthritis is bad and the winter light is thin, I sit by the window and I remember. I remember the dust in the yellow light. I remember the sound of the door closing like a book. I remember the way Bruce's voice did not change when he said 6 seconds, the way it was the same voice he used to correct a stance or explain a principle, the way it carried no fear, no anger, no doubt, just certainty. The certainty of a man who had already decided what kind of man he was and was now offering someone else that very same chance. I remember Chung's hand shaking when he reached for the mitt. I remember the sound of the knife hitting the canvas. I remember the silence that followed, the kind of silence that does not need to be filled because it is already full. People ask me sometimes, when they find out I was there, what Bruce Lee was really like. They want to know about the speed, the power, the 1-inch punch. I tell them what I can. But what I really want to tell them, what I try to tell them, is that the most impressive thing I ever saw Bruce Lee do was not a strike, or a block, or a throw. The most impressive thing I ever saw him do was stand 10 feet from a man with a knife and count to 6, not because he needed the time to prepare, because he needed the time to forgive. That is the story. That is what happened on a Tuesday afternoon in August in a gymnasium that smelled of sweat and floor polish when 200 students sat on a dirty canvas floor and watched a man choose mercy over violence, healing over hurting, humanity over survival. 6 seconds. That is all it took. 6 seconds to change a life. 6 seconds to remind us that we are not bound by what we have done. We are bound only by what we choose to do next. I was there. I was one of the 200, and I have been counting ever since.